Hello and welcome to Cantrip Conversations. I'm Brandon Tharp, the Dungeon Master for We Cantrip, a D&D podcast, and the host here at Cantrip Conversations. Today I'm joined by our guest, Susannah. Did I say that right?
It did.
Okay, Susannah from the podcast Thornvale. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Susannah. I'm from Thornvale. Gosh, what do I say? I'm actually a relative newbie to RPGs. I've really only been playing for like a year and a half, 2 years. I've played lots of RPG video games, but I have not actually been playing RPGs for very long. Like most people, I got started with the Adventure Zone. I find most people it's either Critical Role or Adventure Zone to like get them into it. But
I've actually never watched either of those. I've heard Adventure
oh
Zone's
my gosh,
really. I know. I've heard Adventure Zone's really good, and I've heard Critical
it
Role's
is,
really
but
good.
it doesn't use the systems like they're supposed to, like at all.
Yeah, I've heard Adventure Zone's really good, and so is Critical Role.
It's
I'm just
amazing.
like, I just haven't watched them.
I have
I
not
don't.
gotten into Critical Role yet,
Yeah.
mostly because it's so long.
That's my thing too. I was like, they're like 4-hour episodes. I'm like, I don't got 4 hours to sit around.
And there's so many of them.
Like God bless those guys, and I 100%
Yeah,
believe
man.
they're amazing. But unfortunately, I don't have 4 hours to sit down and just listen straight. So, but props to them for what they do.
I also listen to The Glass Cannon is one of my favorite shows.
Okay, I have listened
And
to
they
Glass
have
Cannon.
over 200 episodes, and it was a long time before I listened to anything else.
I did start listening to Glass Cannon a couple months ago, I believe, and I like it a lot. I haven't kept up on it.
Just out of curiosity, what episode are you on? Do you have any idea?
I don't know, like 5 or 6. It's like here and
Okay,
there.
okay,
I don't
okay.
even
So
remember.
I can't talk about anything yet.
Yeah, I don't even remember like where I'm at on the show. Honestly, like I started listening and I was like, this is really good, and then like I didn't listen for like a week, and I was like, I forget what's going on. I'm gonna listen to episode 2, and I was like, oh yeah, this is really
definitely
good.
One of those that gets like way better with time. Like they start out really fun, but like once they get used to like playing their characters, oh gosh, such a good show.
I feel like a lot of shows are like that too, though. Like you start off like, yeah, we're having fun, we're doing good times, this is a fun time, and then like 20, 30 episodes in, you're like, oh my god, we're gonna fucking die. Like this is, oh no.
Yeah, I definitely think Thornvale's a fairly new show. We've only been going since May, but I think like our second arc was like where we really hit our stride. So like 6 episodes in. So, but that one had been up until this current arc my favorite arc. But so I'll tell you a little bit about Thornvale since I'm supposed
go
to be
ahead.
doing
And
anyways.
it's not D&D, right? It's what
Monster
of the Week.
Yeah, we play a game called Monster of the Week, which is a 2d6 system. So you just roll 2d6s for all of your rolls. And then a 6 and below is a failure, a 7 to 9 is a mixed success, and a 10 and above is a full success. And there's different rules for what you gotta do, and there's only like 8 regular moves, and then each little, like, they call them playbooks, they're kind of like classes. Each little playbook you have has a couple of extra moves that you get that are like special to your character. But it is a ton of fun, and so Thornvale is about a bunch of people with dragon powers who protect a small island town off the coast of Florida. So that's what Thornvale's about. It's super fun.
It sounds really interesting. Like I said, I started listening a few days ago when we were speaking about your show before. I got through episode, I think it was like 0, or like your intro episode where you explain the rules and stuff, and I found it very interesting that it's just a 2d6 system, but at the same time, I think it's really cool, and like the way you explained it, it started to make sense. Like 8 and 10 is like, or 8 through 10 is like a success, or like you pass whatever you want to do. I think you said like 5 through 7, or 7 and or something like that. 6 and 7 is intermediate.
It's 0 through 6.
That's what it is.
Failure.
Okay.
7 to 9 is mixed success, and then
like a 12 or something like that is
and then 10 plus is a full success.
Okay, that's what it is. Yeah, that sounds really cool. I might really want to look into that because I'm always down to play different, like RPGs, role playing games, table, anything like that. Like I'm down to play. Like always. I definitely
want to have your crew at some point.
That would be really cool.
So I have another show I should mention, which is brand new. Our first one actually is going live on Wednesday, so September 11th.
That's this coming Wednesday?
Our very first one, cool. It's a Twitch show, and I basically take other actual play podcasters through a Monster of the Week one-shot.
Oh,
And it's a
okay,
ton
that'd
of
be
fun. So if
cool.
you're interested, it's Dragon Knights one shots.
Awesome. I did talk to some of the guys, all the guys. There's only 4 of us, so I talked to them the other day about it, and they're definitely down to do it. I think you said like
Nice.
maybe like January is when you said we'd be able
Yeah,
to do that.
January
So,
would be when you guys would be in.
oh yeah, so we can definitely, for sure, if not all of us, at least some of us, I for sure will be there. And I'll definitely try to get the
Definitely.
other guys involved. That sounds really, really cool. In
Yeah,
my
it's been
opinion.
fun. I did 2 what we call test runs of it,
Uh huh.
which is basically like I didn't really like advertise it, but I found a couple of different people to play to like test out the system, and I had completely separate technical difficulties with both ones. So we'll see how this actually
Yeah,
goes.
I saw you doing like I think a test run the other night. And I chimed in
Yeah.
for a little bit for a few minutes just to kind of see what it was like. I didn't have too much time on my hands, but I did chime in a little bit. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested to give it a shot. It sounds really cool for like I've never done a 2d6 system before.
Yeah, it's so simple too. It's one of the reasons I really like Monster of the Week is that it's just like it's so easy to pick up because all you have to do is explain that one system, and then you never have to tell me like I want to do this roll or I want to do this roll. You just tell me what you want to do,
And you're
then
like,
I tell you what to roll
you're like,
as
I have
as
my
the
dice.
GM.
Yeah, that's super nice having like, oh, I just have 2d6 I have to go by. That's
So
awesome.
all you need to know is what your stats are, what your moves are, and
go with
what
it.
your dice roll is basically.
Yeah, that's
So as long as
really
you know
cool.
what your stats are, and there's only like 5 or 6 that you have to keep an eye on, and they're only like it's only like -1 to +3 is like the range. So
Oh, so
it's
it's
really
like
easy to keep it in mind.
so it sounds like it's almost like nothing like D&D, like in a sense, because D&D is my
Yeah.
extreme background. Like that's my go-to. I've been playing D&D for like fucking 12 to 15 years, something like that. Like since I was in like middle school, elementary school, even like 4th, 5th grade is when I started playing
Oh
D&D.
wow, you're a veteran.
Oh, yeah, I've been playing for a long time. I've only been DMing for maybe like 8 years, which is still kind of a long time. But
A little bit.
yeah, the first time I ever played, I was like 10 years old. My friend's dad at the time had like I think it was like 3rd edition or 3.5, something like that we played. And he really dumbed it down for us because we were just kids, we were really young.
Yeah.
But we played the game, and I ended up falling in love with it like immensely. And then my parents ended up getting divorced, and I moved, and I had no friends, and I didn't play D&D. I like went on like a D&D withdrawal. It was just like I had nothing because we played for like a year straight. We're going through this cool campaign. I had a really cool sorcerer. I forget his name, like Anduin, Alden, something like that. It was like some typical sorcerer name, and next thing you know, he was just gone because we moved, and it was sad times. And a few years later, I think I was like 8th grade, going into high school almost, I picked up 3.5 still because I heard 4th edition was horrible, so I was playing 3.5. And we played that for the longest time. And then when I hit college, I got 5th edition, and we've been playing that ever since then. I've played with various play groups and stuff through the years, but my current play group is my podcast group, and it's been a blast ever since. So yeah, D&D has been a long time game for me ever since I was just a wee lad.
Yeah. So my D&D story, or my RPG story, since I've never actually played D&D. I've played Pathfinder and Monster of the Week are the only 2 I've been playing. Like I said, I've only been playing for 2 years, but after my husband and I got married last year in July, he'd been playing D&D a lot in like college, or Pathfinder. I can't remember which one he played, but
Either of them
like,
are either of them pretty respectable. So
I really miss. He was telling me one day, like, I really miss playing D&D. I think it may have been after I started listening to the Adventure Zone, and he was like, "Oh, this is really fun. I really miss playing D&D or Pathfinder." And I was like, "Hey, I'm a writer. I could probably figure this stuff out." And so I offered to DM for him. My first time ever playing any RPG, and I was the DM.
Oh, so you didn't even start out as a player. You just hopped right in.
I did, yeah. Yeah, I hopped right in. I've actually only ever played once on a family camping trip. One of the people who are like one of the people on the trip was like a really good DM, and they helped me like make my character and everything. And I played as I usually play in like every RPG I've ever done, a stealthy archer type.
Yeah, natural.
My go-to I ever played was a one-shot during this family camping trip. But otherwise, I've only ever DM'd. Or GM, depending on,
Yeah, my go-to, like you were saying.
I played Pathfinder
Sorry about that.
Which is basically, from what I understand, like 3.5.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard a lot of similarities
Very
between
similar.
D&D and Pathfinder. I've just never played Pathfinder, but like you were saying, your go-to is like a ranger. My go-to is either one of two things, either a rogue or a bard, because I will play the shit out of a bard because I will seduce or charm everything, and I play the shit out of a rogue because I will hide and I will stab and steal everything. Like I play those
Yeah,
characters to a T, like because I'm a big role player when it comes to these games. I mean, naturally, when you're doing a podcast, you kind of have to
definitely.
be in that sense of the theater to the mind sense and the just the not so much acting but the voice acting and being like character immersion sense of the game is like very important. I feel like when it comes to a podcast, especially since you're building a story and you're building characters that you want the audience to really grow to, uh it's been a big help with me, like my role-playing background, to do a podcast, and I find it helps immensely.
Yeah, I know I was never really into like acting or anything. I've had people say like, "Oh, you'd be a good actor." I'm like, "No, I don't think so." But I actually like really enjoy playing characters, especially because I just like seeing people's reactions to things. So it's really fun to like play characters and say ridiculous things and narrate through my players going through stuff, because that's what I really enjoy. Like I like playing the characters, but it's more fun for me to make a story for someone to enjoy, honestly.
That is my big thing too, because even when I was like a little kid, like I've always been just like a nerd and like a geek or like a weeb. Like ever since I was like able to speak, I was always watching anime, watching fantasy shows, fantasy
You're a
movies, all that kind of
weeb.
stuff. Yes, exactly. I was a wee little weeb. And I was always big into like world making. I used to write my own comics. They were horrible because I can't draw for the life of me on
I
pen and
did
paper.
too. I was also terrible at drawing.
I can do digital art, like I do like our own like character art for our show and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Which is it's like more cartoony based in style. I cannot do photorealism art for the life of me. I just there's no way. So anything I do is like I'm doing a cartoon because it doesn't matter if it looks bad. I'm gonna add color and shading so it looks like I know what I'm doing, and that's how my art style goes. But I've been making stories since I was like a kid. Like it's just been a bit like writing short stories, writing comics. Like so when I got introduced to D&D, and I was like, wait a minute, there's a game where I can just make my own world and do whatever I want and tell a story to other people. Like, yeah, that was great. Like so DMing to me, it's like I love being a player. And I rarely get to be a player, and when I do, I go all out because I rarely get to do it. But DMing for me is like definitely the biggest, like, and probably most favorite part of like doing any kind of like tabletop RPG type game.
I bet DMs love you because like you go real hard on the role play.
Oh yeah, like I've played in not just my podcast group, but like in home games where we play, where it's not a podcast group, it's just like a group for fun, like like most games are. Like I do voices, like I stand up at the table, I like do the physical movement, like everything, get into it, and my players, it's amazing to see how they go from day one. They're just like having fun with it, goofing around, nothing too crazy, too serious, having fun with it. And then they see me doing all this over the top role playing and like acting and everything, and they're like, "Huh, that's cool." And then
What
by
if
like
we did that?
yeah, by like session like 3 or 4, next thing you know, like everybody's talking with a deep accent, or everybody's talking like this, everybody's standing up at the table and throwing things around, and I'm like, all right,
Nice.
this is the game, and you can't get that with any other game. Well,
Yeah.
any other like video
With my
game
guys, it has
or
definitely been like over time they've definitely like grown into their characters a lot more, and like things have happened obviously in both the games that I play, my Pathfinder game and my Monster of the Week game. Like I think it took a little while, for the Pathfinders especially, because like they had never played anything before except for my husband. Actually, well, my dad had. My dad played OG D&D. Like
oh,
he
like
played
first
D&D back when
edition.
D&D was new.
No, back in the glory days. I actually played first edition about 2 or 3 weeks ago. A buddy of mine, Christian, him and his dad, they play D&D on the weekends, and I play with them on an online game. And his dad was DMing, and I'm sorry, no, not his dad. He was DMing, and he was running first edition, and I had never played first edition before my entire life, and I thought it'd be similar to fifth edition. But when I got in there and he explained the rules, he's like, "No, man, this is this. These are your saving throws. This is how this goes." I'm like, "This is not the same. We are not playing the same game right now. What is happening?" And
Yeah.
it was very interesting. So it's crazy to see just how big like maybe not even just D&D, but like how RPGs and tabletop games have like evolved over the past like 20 years to what they are now. Because if D&D had that big of a drastic change, I imagine like other games did too.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't even anything like a Powered by the Apocalypse game like Monster of the Week, because like nobody even thought of doing something that was like that simple back then, you know. So
I think
now
I would.
there's so many of these Powered by the Apocalypse games that are all built off the same system. So if you like want to go play like a D&D style Powered by the Apocalypse game, you can go do Dungeon World. You know, like if you wanna be part of a Monster of the Week thing, you can play Monster of the Week like we do. You can do whatever you want. If you want to play in the stars, there's ones for that. Like, it's crazy.
I think I'd be very interested in playing a game like that, like, you know, Monster of the Week and like you guys play, simply because I find beauty in simplicity sometimes. Like, I find sometimes overcomplicating things can just kind of deter the fun. So having a very simplified system like that, like a 2d6 system, where it's like, these are your dice, this is how you roll, let's fucking go. Like, I think that opens like the world a little more to players to have like a little more freedom, and it takes the stress off of their minds of like, all right, I have 7 different types of dice, I gotta roll this one for this, I gotta have my percentile die for this, and like all this kind of stuff. And sometimes it's a big thinking game. So I think the beauty of those games is probably the simplicity of the system, because it sounds like it works really well from what you're saying.
Yeah, and I particularly enjoy it for the podcast, because as much as I love what Troy has done with the Glass Cannon, that could never be me. Like, I hate math. I don't want to do math all day. I'm perfectly fine having to do my little tiny bit of math to figure it out. But like, so here let me give you an example. So the second arc of Thornvale, I won't spoil anything, but the second arc of Thornvale had a timer on it for some of the episodes, and every single time I told the players how many like hours they had left to accomplish their goal, I got it wrong, because I'm really, really bad at math.
Okay.
So I love Monster of the Week and other like Powered by the Apocalypse type games, because at least for the podcast, like, I don't have to think that much about rules and stuff. I just have to think about the story, and then I let the roles take care of where the story goes, you know.
And that's the thing I love about, just not, like I said, not just D&D. I mean, I am gonna mention D&D a lot, because that is like, you know, the biggest tabletop game I've played. I want to play Pathfinder, but the roles in the games really help drive the story. Like, it's just what it is. Like, I actually did an interview with somebody from an audio drama last night, and they, you know, they do a straight storytelling podcast. They just talk about, you know, it's pre-scripted. They know what's going on. They're doing it for entertainment because it's a pre-written story, which is really cool. The thing I love about, you know, D&D and like tabletop games is like, you don't know what the hell is going to happen. Like, D&D and like Pathfinder, other tabletop games that we play, it's basically collective storytelling that's determined by dice rolls, is what it turns out to be. So like, you don't know what's going to happen, and that is the best part about these games, is because like, even the DM doesn't know what's going to happen sometimes.
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the things I absolutely love about it, is that like, I have no idea where the story's going. Like, I have like my notes, and I have like how this is what's going to happen. In Months of the Week, you have this thing called the countdown, which is like a list of events of things that would happen if the hunters didn't intervene, basically.
Okay.
And so I have that list. I have like I do a lot of writing of like story, because I like to have things planned, and I like to have different contingency plans depending on what my players do. But at the same time, like, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know. They might just decide, I'm going to ignore this thing entirely. Like, this thing that I thought was going to be a big part of the story is just not anymore.
It throws the game in a different direction, yeah.
Screw that, man. I'm just going to go somewhere else and ignore this part. And I'm like, well, okay, then now I have to figure out how to get you the information you need to defeat the thing that you're trying to defeat. Because you didn't pay attention when I dropped a hint.
And the best part about that is, too, is like,
they just respond to things in ways that I could never have imagined.
Yep.
Like episode, it's not out yet, but episode 22 just went so off the rails, and it just, like, just because of player choices. Like, it was nothing I planned. It wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
It was just the players decided to do things, and I was just like, well, okay, then roll for it. And then they rolled badly, or they rolled well. And it just, oh man, it was just crazy. Absolutely crazy. And that's absolutely my favorite part about this, is like, I look forward to doing these things every week, because even I don't know what's going to happen next,
Yep, that's the thing with like I said, that's the thing with these games. You don't know what's gonna happen, what the dice are gonna tell, and like you don't know what your players are gonna do. Like like you were saying, like I have things that are pre-planned too. I have on my notes I have like things that could happen if the players do A, B, C, or D, and it splits off into like a different tree of things. Like, all right, if they do this, this is gonna happen. If not, this will happen. If not, this will happen. But sometimes there's the things where they select option E, which option E I didn't fucking write for, and I didn't know they were gonna do it. And I'm like, oh, I gotta figure this out on the fly, which that I love. Like a lot of people are like, oh my god, I wasn't prepared for this, and I'm like, yes, I wasn't prepared for this. I get to improvise now. I get to have fun. You guys are fucked. Like, not that I try to intentionally like hurt my players, do anything, but it's like when I get to improvise and stuff, like I make sure like I think like quick, like all right, what's gonna happen? Like how's this gonna go down? For example, one of our episodes of maybe 20 episodes ago, because we're on episode 39 today that just released today. Next week's episode 40, which is our season finale, which I'm super excited for our arc 1 to end and kind of move forward and to open up the world more. But they were on a floating sky called like a mage college in the sky. And they were getting the Sky College called Blue River College was getting invaded by cultists on an airship, and they were going to get an evil artifact of Vecna to resummon this Lich God, and they were defending the college. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I gave them like utility and stuff. I'm like, the mages are putting a magic barrier around the college. Like you have this at your disposal, this and this and this. And I put like a countdown on. I'm like, the ships are going to be here in this many rounds. Like, how are you guys going to go about this? There's at least like 50 in the distance. Like, it's going to get wild. What are you guys going to do? And I was expecting one of three things to happen. They were going to get the artifact, which was the Hand of Vecna. They were going to get it and get the fuck out of Dodge and let the college fight for itself, which would have been respectable. The mages would have agreed with them, like, take it, go. They can't get their hands on this. We'll fight them off as long as we can. They were going to, B, stay and fight, and it would have been very interesting. Or C, they were going to use some utility they had recently, acquired in a previous mission to help take care of the situation even more. But it was kind of like a one-time deal thing they could have used. So I'm like, one of those three things is going to happen. They didn't choose any of
none of those
happened. They looked at me. They're like, hey, we're at a floating sky college, right? I'm like, yes, you're thousands of feet in the air, this and this and this. They're like, is there an airship around anywhere? And I'm like, well, yeah, there would be an airship because they got to get here somehow. Either they're taking a teleportation portal and they're getting there, or they're getting on a ship and flying. And I'm like, all right, cool. I thought they were going to take a portal and, get the hell out of there. I guess they're going to take an airship, which, all right, I don't know what their thinking is. They're like, all right, cool. We're going to the airship. And I'm like, all right, they allow you to use an airship, this and this and this. We role-played it out. They got on the airship. They go out of the magic barrier. They're like, all right, we're charging full speed at these airships. And I'm like, hold the fuck. Wait, what? And they did some of the coolest and dumbest shit I've ever seen. They were flying into airships intentionally, knocking people off, and getting just super high rolls.
So funny.
And I'm like, the first, like, they did this 3 times until it failed. They flew their airship, onto another airship, like hit it to try to knock it out of the sky. When the captain that was flying it, which was one of our players, flew into the ship, the 2 other players jumped from their ship to the other ship, fought people off, jumped back on the airship, and they were just rolling insanely high. And I'm like, this is fucking insane. Until they did it a 4th time. It was a bad roll. Our gnome player failed his deck save to grab onto the ship and fell off of the ship. And he was able to break his fall and, he used like an evil artifact that he found to save his life temporarily. But it paralyzed him from the waist down. His alignment dropped to evil, and he had to have his legs chopped off, and he got robotic legs from that, and he's still damaged since that.
Oh my gosh.
In that scenario, the thing with D&D is like there's rulings that prevent fall damage. The max fall damage you can take in 5th edition D&D is 20d6. You take a d6 for every 10 feet you fall. Yeah. Technically, the rules did save it. I'm like, well, I mean, like I could say, that fall from that distance is going to kill you, which it very well should have. But because of the evil artifact that he found that spoke to him on the fall and was like, listen, hey, let's make a deal. You'll survive this fall if you, sign this contract inside your mind. And he was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do that. And he hit the ground. He was knocked out, lost his legs. And there was like a 4 episode arc where he couldn't do anything. He was useless. He was in a backpack like Yoda and just couldn't fucking do anything for 4 episodes. So he got his legs fixed. And I was like,
That's insane.
this is on you guys,
but that's
fam.
like the best part about this game is that like you never know what someone's gonna do.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
here's a good example. So I don't want to spoil anything for Thornvale, but my favorite moment I think that we've ever had. So I have to set this up a little bit. So this is with my Pathfinder game. We have a bard, a wizard, a fighter, and an archer. And I gave this ridiculous group a cleric because I knew they would die if they didn't have one. So the bard received a note from a courier that said, "Hey, you have been given by your uncle a mansion and an estate. The only thing is you have to stay in it for 5 days to claim it, basically." And so like, all right. And so they went to the mansion and settled down and met the nice overseer of the mansion, who was a ghost named Joseph. And Joseph was like, well, look, so this isn't going to go well for you. Like, there's bad things that are going to happen. I can't tell you anymore, but bad things are going to happen. You cannot leave the mansion at all during this time, or you will forfeit your right to own it.
Or you're done. Like, you're screwed. Like,
yeah. So they got through the first night, fought a bunch of stuff inside the mansion, and in the morning they tried to heal themselves and found out, oh, healing doesn't work. At which point Joseph appeared and said, yeah, so the thing I wasn't allowed to tell you is that you cannot heal yourself at all any point in these 5 days.
Oh. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Like, we're in danger.
Yeah, exactly. Cut to that gif. We're in danger, yeah.
Yeah.
So the way they could save themselves, if they were like really low on health, they could leave the mansion. The only person who couldn't eventually was the bard. One of the nights, I want to say it was like night 3, both the wizard and the cleric almost died and had to leave. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't expect 2 of the players to do it. And then I think they survived another 2 nights. And the 5th night, the last night, almost everyone left. Like, everyone who was there left. Oh, we had a magus with us at that point. I forgot about him. The last 2 players ended up having to leave through various means. And the last one standing were the bard and the magus, and they defeated the last monster. And then the boss came in, and the boss was Joseph, the caretaker. He was forced to fight as part of his being bound to the house.
Duties, yeah.
And I'm like, they're so low on health. Like, at this point, they were sitting pretty on like 10 hit points each. And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to have to pull some stuff out of their butt to fix this, and it's going to be crazy. But what happened was the magus was a shapeshifter. And earlier in the day, he had said, hey, is there a picture of the former, the uncle that left us this place somewhere? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go look at it for a while. I was like, all right, whatever. You do you, man. And in the last couple of seconds of this fight, he turned into the uncle and convinced Joseph that he was his master just long enough for the wizard to throw a cold iron chain through the door and pull Joseph out. And it was the most insane thing I have ever heard.
Jesus Lord.
And I was just, and once he was out of the house, he couldn't go back in, so they automatically won, and they got to keep the house, and it was that's absolutely insane.
So they like won by default then. They won because of the rules. They didn't have to defeat
the final big bad. They just had to survive the 5 days.
That's
so they
cool.
Did, and it was insane.
I can actually talk about this now because this episode is going to air after our season finale, but the way my players tried to defeat the big bad in our first arc was basically our dwarven player went invisible. He's a monk, and they had a bunch of bombs in bags of holding, and he tried to jump on top of the big bad, use all of his key points as a monk to run in the other room, light a stick of dynamite with another key point, and blow himself up. And he did it. He insta-killed this guy. Fucking insta-killed the supposed big bad. And I was just like, all right. And the sad thing about it is, like, it was fucking insane. They had this thing planned out. They planned it out for almost half an episode, like how they were going to do it, what they were going to do. What the players didn't know was, like, they thought Nomo, who was the dwarf player, they thought they were just going to drop the bombs on top of him while he was invisible and blow him up, and they were going to take some damage and get the fuck out of there. No, Nomo grabbed him, ran out of the room, said, I love you, to his friends, bolted out of the room and blew up and killed himself so nobody got hurt or possibly died with him. And I was just like, oh my God. And they just looked around. There was silence in the room. 6 cultists were standing around, just like staring around with like their hoods up, like very silent still. And then my players looked at me and they were like, did we just do it? And I was like, well, you still have 6 cultists in the room that are about to attack you because you just killed their leader. And they're like, all right, fuck. So it was 2-on-6 on regular cultists. And I'm like, here we go. And the cultists were just like, they were weak. You know, they were just there for like support for the big bad guy.
Yeah.
A round of combat went around. And it got to the very last cultist. He took his hood off, and it was a tiefling man. And he looked at them and said, in an old voice, I knew that clone was going to come in handy someday. And they all looked at me, and they were like, oh, no. And I was like, yeah, y'all done fucked up, and I was not expecting that. So they had to do the final big bad fight 2-on-3, and it was one of the most...
Oh, shoot, man.
It was one of the most epic fights I've ever seen or played out in my entire, like, RPG career. And they got through it by the skin of their teeth only because of, I'm not going to say, like, fuckery and bullshit, but just, like, very good rolls, very good role play, and just using their utility to the max of their abilities. Like, it was, like, the most tense thing that we've like had in the episode of this day. So I'm super excited for people to hear like our season finale that's airing last week technically.
Man, that is insane. That's really cool.
It was insane. And then like it was a big moment too because it was our first character death on the show. Like nobody's died yet. Yeah. He was the first to die. So people were just like, oh my God. And like we had an emotional epilogue where like I did like an epilogue for his death too because I want to make a character that's significant. I don't want to be like, yeah, you're dead. And like there was an epilogue where he floated to the dwarven heavens and saw his family and like all this kind of stuff. And it was very emotional, but I was just like, dude, I wasn't expecting you to just kamikaze yourself. And he's like, I thought it was going to work. And I was like, yeah, but these guys are smart and planned for that ahead of time. They knew you weren't going to come in and just give up. Like, and it was, I just wasn't expecting it. Like my mind was fucking blown. I'm like, oh my God, he just killed himself thinking he was going to save everybody. And now it's going to be 2-on-6 against the actual big, oh my man, God.
That is crazy. That's really cool though.
But yeah, the fight was insane. One of the things
I wanted to talk to you about was like, what are your theories about like killing off characters?
So
I have been told that I am a somewhat brutal DM, and I have gotten 2 of the 3 players down to 1 hit point. I haven't gotten the other one yet because he has a lot of armor, but I'll get him there eventually.
My question for you is, how does death work in your game? Before I answer that question, because I am going to talk about it because it's actually a really good topic, how does death work in Monster of the Week? Like, is it when you hit 0, you die, or are you, like, knocked out? Like, how does that go?
Yeah, when you hit 0... So here's the thing to keep in mind with Monster of the Week. It is meant to be kind of a brutal game. You only have 8 hit points total.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, some of my monsters do 4 hit points of damage. So I'm pretty good about not killing them off, like, because I don't want to, especially early on, like, I really don't want to, but I'm also not easy on them.
Yeah, that's
like,
fair.
As far as I'm concerned, when, you have 8 hit points, and the 4th hit point you tick off means you're unstable, so if you keep moving, you keep hurting yourself. So in Monster of the Week, if you lose all your hit points, you're dead. Like, you're just dead.
Okay. See, now with...
That said, I have plans.
Gotcha.
If any one of my characters... I've told them that a couple times, like, hey, yeah, so I have plans about your character if your character dies. And they said, that really doesn't make me feel any better.
Yeah, like, oh, thank you, ? So with 5th edition D&D...
There are actually ways, like, you can be... Basically, like... I can take your character. Like if you get corrupted enough, like I can just like have that's my character now. It's a villain, it's mine.
Oh, that's cool.
You can't have it anymore. You have to make a new character because your character is my character now.
Nice. So with 5th edition D&D, I haven't
crossed any of that yet, but like there are different versions of death in this game, basically.
Okay. But yeah, so with death in 5th edition D&D, it's if you hit 0 hit points, you don't die, you go down. You're knocked unconscious, and then you have to make death saving throws. If you get 3 passes, you stabilize. You're not up and can't fight, but you're stabilized and not going to bleed out. If you get 3 fails, then you're dead. There are ways to outright die. So, like, if you're on the ground knocked out unconscious and somebody just, like, stabs you, you instantly suffer 2 death saving throws, and you're that close to death. or if you get hit for your maximum hit, if you get hit for damage with your maximum hit points, if you go down to 0 hit points and then the rest of the damage that is left over that wasn't dealt to you is equal to your max hit points, and then you insta die, nothing. Or if you get hit down to 0 HP from necrotic damage, you're instantly dead. So there's ways to insta die in D&D, but there's also, the knocked out stabilization aspect. I have knocked down my players multiple times in our podcast, like a lot. And some of the times, yes, it was for me, because I'm thinking, like, as the game progresses, the stakes get a little higher. I got to make things harder. People are going to go down. They're going to get knocked out. Like, it's just going to be part of the game. I'm not one to I'm not one to I'm not one to intentionally kill somebody off the bat, because I do want to keep, a progressive story. People like our characters. We get fan art and stuff, which is really cool. So I'm not going to be that DM that just purposely kills a character. That being said, if they do some dumb shit that's going to result in their death, because that's what happens in, tabletop RPGs, like, if you do something dumb, you might die. I'm not going to stop from happening. Like, I'm just not. Yeah. There's been plenty of scenarios where, like,
I pretty much have the same. I pretty much have the same philosophy with both my Pathfinder game and with my Monster of the Week game. I prefer they stay alive, but I'm never going to baby them. I'm never going to let them get away with doing dumb stuff that they should be, disciplined for.
The first couple episodes of our show, maybe like the first 5, it was very, like, ease in to the game, because one of our players, Greg, he's actually never played a single tabletop RPG before, ever. And the podcast is his first time ever playing D&D, and he's doing fucking phenomenal at it, because he's role-playing to a T, super into it. But the first couple episodes were kind of like introductory. But after that, when shit started getting more serious, like, I was like, hey, you need to rest or you're going to die in, like, a day because you got infected with this disease. And they were like, oh, well, fuck. And I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, but we got to go do the thing. And I'm like, yeah, but you might die. And he's like, oh, fuck. And I'm like, yeah, figure out the situation. So I've had them in multiple situations where they've almost died. We've almost had multiple TPKs because of, like, the way combats went. I wouldn't say I'm overly brutal. I feel like I balance my encounters very, very well, though, because I don't want to make them too easy to the point where they just blow through everything and it's not satisfying. Because if you throw too easy stuff at them, they're just going to go through and be like, oh, yeah, we killed the bad guys again. Like, whatever. Now, if you throw an encounter in where, like, 2 of the party members went down, the last one standing's got, like, 5 HP, and he kills him with a final blow, like, the next shot and the next person is going to kill him, like, and the party is victorious, that's exciting as hell. And, like, that's the best combat scenarios we get, is when, like, people go down and, like, there's one person left, they got to save everybody. And that's happened a couple of different times. And some people have told me, like, man, you hit your players a lot with a lot of hard stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but they usually make it out of it because they play really smart. And when they do make it out of it and they don't die and it comes that close to death, they're super excited about it. Like, they are physically, like, in-game and out-of-game fucking pumped, because they're like, we did this and we didn't die. That was awesome. It was hard, it was challenging, but it was totally worth it. And that's satisfying to them as players and me as a DM, because I know that I balanced the encounter to a T, so that way, there was a chance of death. Like, it might have happened. Like, 2 players went down, 1 more hit, and he's just going to go stab them to death until they're dead. Or on the other hand, the player kills the big bad guy and stabilizes his friends, and they stand up with, like, 2 HP, barely breathing, but they know they did it. And it's super satisfying on both ends.
Oh, absolutely. That's actually one of the things that I really enjoy about the Glass Cannon is, like I said, Troy, I have been accused of being a mean GM, and I admit it. I am pretty brutal when it comes to my monsters, but Troy is another level of sadistic for me. And I mean, some of the things that happen during that show and that they get out of, and the things that they don't get out of, are insane. And it's one of the reasons that I love the show, is that it's cool to get to see them succeed.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to listen to that show, because I've heard a lot of good things about it. Like I said, I listened to the first couple episodes. I thought it was really, really good. But I'm really going to have to, like, get back into it now, because I'm caught up on the rest of the shows that I listen to. I started listening to yours recently, and I like the way it's going, from the intro episode. I think I'm going to like it a lot. But Glass Cannon is definitely got to be a go-to for mine when I
just make sure you have time, because, like I said, it's like 200 episodes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's a long show, but yeah. Finish Thornvale first. We've only got 20 20. Yeah, 20.
Oh, okay. So you guys have only been doing this for what, a couple months then, right?
Yeah, since May. Since the beginning of
Oh,
May, we've been
okay.
doing it.
Nice. Yeah, we've been
So
doing ours since November of last year is when we started
awesome.
doing it, and we have released weekly ever since then. So next week is going to be episode 40. So 40 straight weeks of us, having gameplay. I did have a question for you actually. When you guys
Sure.
play your game and record for Thornvale, do you guys just do one episode, record it, and then come back next week and record, or do you guys record in bulk?
It depends. For our players don't have a lot of time, especially one player has a really busy schedule. So normally we record 2 episodes a week, just because we want to build up the backlog.
Yep.
We actually had a 5-week recording hiatus that we had recorded in advance of, because my husband had a trip that he had to go on.
Okay.
And so we couldn't record because one of our players was gone. So we recorded up until then, and then we didn't get to record for like 5 weeks, and then we came back. We've been doing 2 a week ever since. So we're trying to like build up enough of a backlog, and at some point I'm planning on maybe doing like a one shot of a different game. So we'd be recording like 1 week, one for the week for Thornvale, and then like the other hour we'd record for the other game.
Okay, that's
Probably
really cool.
Or something like that.
So the way we do it is pretty similar to that actually. We try to get together every 2 weeks, but when we do record, we record almost like 4 or 5 episodes. We play for like 5-6 hours, and we knock out material like constantly, just because we like having a big like backlog, like you're saying, like a backlog of the category, just to have. You never know, like shit comes up. We can't record this week, but it's okay. We have like 3 weeks worth of material. But we generally try to get together like every 2 weeks, and it's worked very well ever since then. Just because I work full time, I'm a counselor. My friend that I work with that plays with us, Greg, he's also a counselor. Ian, who plays Pate Asher, he's still in college. He's got like a year left of college, and he works too. And then Cameron's pretty open. He's off at 2 every day. But we kind of have not insane schedules, but there are some weeks where it's kind of like kind of iffy. Like I'm getting married here soon, so I've been planning all that, and
yeah,
so
one of our players is also getting married soon, so we need to make sure that she can have time to actually enjoy our honeymoon before I'm like, hey, are you done? Can we record again? Please, can we record again?
Can we do the thing? But yeah, so we always make sure we have stuff, like ahead of time ready to go, and it's worked very well, because we didn't record for almost an entire month at one point in the summer, just because Greg had a second kid and he was super busy. So to prepare for that, we sat down for a day. I think we did 2 days actually back to back, and we played for like 12 hours and recorded material for the entire summer. And it worked great. And then still in the summer, we got together a couple times and we recorded. And for example, we recorded our last 4 episodes we have. So the one we released last week, the week before that, and today's, and next week's, we recorded them like a month and a half ago. So we've been sitting on this footage for a month and a half waiting to release it, because we're so excited to start Arc 2. But it's like on our Discord and stuff, people are talking to us like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. You should listen to the episode. You should listen to the episode. We're not sure yet. And I'm like, God damn it.
And that's the hardest part for me about recording ahead of time, is that I want to like tell people like, hey, yeah, like this happens and this happens and this happens, and I want to talk about it like right now, but I have to wait until the episodes actually go out.
Yep. Yeah, that's the hard part about it.
So here's kind of a funny thing that happened. So my brother-in-law's girlfriend is listening to the show, and she was texting me and my husband a couple of days ago about like the show, and I was like, oh, what episode are you on? She's like, oh, I'm on episode 11 and blah blah blah. And a couple of minutes later, I realized that she said I'm on episode 11. And I realized as I was like typing something about the episode, I said, hey, so did you finish episode 11 or are you in the middle of it? And she goes, oh, I just started it. I'm like, oh, okay.
Like, I'm gonna stop typing.
I just had to like send evil emojis, like little devil horned emojis, and yeah, so I can't talk to this about you anymore. I can't talk about this with you anymore, because ooh, this is one of our best episodes.
I've been in a couple situations like that, because we have surprisingly, we have people listen to our show, and like I said, we get messages, fan art, all that cool stuff, and it's really cool. But then I do have like my few like personal friends that do enjoy the show a lot, so like they'll text me and be like, oh my God, like I can't believe that just happened. And I was like, what just happened? Like, oh, the recent episode. I'm like, oh, which one was that again? I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. We're like 6 episodes ahead of that. So I'm like, yeah, just wait until the thing next episode happens. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to be really surprised, but I can't talk about it. And I'm like, I'm super excited for like them to hear where the arc's going, but I'm like, wait and see. Just wait.
So I try to leave every episode on a cliffhanger, basically.
Oh yeah, I do the same shit. You have to. You absolutely have to.
Every like other week or so, I get a message from my dad because he loves the show, and the message is just the words "F you," and then he says, "So I just listened to your newest episode."
Yep.
He's constantly like saying like I should get dad privileges. I should get to listen to the episodes before they're out. And I'm like, no, you don't get dad privileges.
Yeah, we've had multiple situations like that happen where specifically a situation that happened that's really cool in the past couple episodes is our player Pate's been going through some like trauma and like turmoil with his family and stuff. And he told me ahead of time, he's like, hey, Art 2, I'm basically like leaving my family behind. Like, I don't like them anymore. I don't like what they've done. I don't like any of the shit that they're doing. Like, I'm sick of it. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I'm like, me being the evil DM that I am, like, I'm going to use that. So in the episode that happened last week, he went to go tell his family, like, listen, stay here. We're taking care of this big bad situation. Stay here. Be safe. Like, and I'll see you when I get back, because he still cares about him. But like R2, he's telling me like what's going to happen, like how he's going to handle his family and stuff. But then I was like, all right, I'm going to use this. He goes to his family's house. Goes and knock on the door. He sees a dagger in the door with a note saying, we have your family. Bring the Eye of Vecna to us or else I die. And he was just like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. And I'm like, yep. And the best part about it is I already had that predetermined. I knew it was going to happen. What he did was he sent the family of another one of our players who was part of the cult they're fighting to his family's house for refuge because they didn't want to be in the cult anymore. They wanted out, and he was like, listen, go here, take my emblem, show my dad, they'll keep you safe until this is all over. So he thought initially that when he sent the cult members there, that it was their fault they were kidnapped. But it actually wasn't. But he had to sit on it for like an entire episode before he found out like they were forced to do it. And then that's like all my friends are like, oh my God, like they're messing me. Like, I can't believe Tack's family took Pate's family. And I'm like, yep. Yeah, that's totally what happened. Not really. Listen to next week's episode and you'll find out. You find out they were forced to do it against their will. They didn't want to do it, this kind of stuff. And I was like, God, I want to say it so bad because it's such a good arc. But I'm like, just listen.
So I had a moment in at the end of our third arc. There was one character that was like pestering all of the characters and being a general nuisance and being hilarious. And he's one of my favorite characters, one of my NPCs. And some of the characters hated him, and it was really funny. Anyway, so something happened with this character, and it was the end of the session. It was the end of the arc completely. And something happened, and it happened to my husband's character, and he just like at the end of the episode, he just like crawled into bed and then put the pillow over his face and was like, no.
Yeah, I play with my players' emotions a lot.
So happy about it.
Oh, you have to be. Like when you make your players,
it's like really good for the story, but really crappy for the player.
Yep. The thing is, like, I love not so much making, but I know I've done a good job as a DM when my players are physically ill and upset over what's happened in the game. They're just like, oh my God, that's so good, but fuck you, Brandon. And I'm like, I had to do it, dude. Like, there's so much foreshadowing for all this kind of shit that's going on. And they're like, I know, and I didn't want it to happen, but fuck you, man. And like, I've had like Greg, who plays Nomo, he's literally had tears go down his face because he's just like, oh my God, I can't believe you did this. And I'm like, I had to, dude. Like, he's like, it's so good. And I'm like, yep, I just had to. And it's, I love seeing those kinds of reactions, like, out of, like, players and fans, too. Like, getting, like, upset, like, oh my God, no, this happened. And I'm like, yeah, it did. They're like, no, why? And I'm like, I don't know, fam, it's just a game. But if you love it that much, then yeah.
Yeah, we had a moment in our most recent episode that we recorded where like the whole episode was just so intense and it was all role play. There was one role the entire episode. And at the end of the episode, we were just like really quiet. Like all of us were just sitting there and going, Oh man, that was oh boy, oh man. And it was just, it's our most intense episode ever. And it was just like, and I loved it because it was like all role play. But even I, as like the GM, was like shaking because I was just so it was just like I got really into it, you know. Like I knew where the story was going, but like their reactions and what was going on just gave me chills and was like making me shake, and like my heart was like going through my throat, you know.
Yep.
It was crazy, but I love those moments because like those are like the moments where
I've gotten
it's just the best.
I've gotten very emotional as a DM a couple times, specifically the very end of our arc. There's a moment where they're fighting the big bad guy, and I'm allowed to talk about this now. If you haven't listened to it, spoilers ahead, but it's been out for like a week now if you're listening to this episode by the time we air everything. Nomo, the guy that blew up, he died. And at the final hit, when Pate swung his hammer down to kill the big bad guy, I told him, how do you want to do this? Because whenever a big kill happens, like I let them be creative, like kill him however the fuck you want because you deserve it, especially at this moment. So they made him and Tack, the two players, made it super emotional. And like they were like crying like in game because Nomo died and like, you know, they didn't want the world to end, all this kind of stuff. And eventually he's like, all right, I'm doing this, like, blah, 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 blah. I lift up my hammer. I say this to him, and I'm swinging it down as hard as I possibly can. I know it's a hammer. With tears in my eyes, I'm going to scream for Nomo. At the same time, swing it down, and I want to cut him in half with my hammer. And I'm like, that's fucking cool. But then I was like, Nomo. I cut to him. They thought he was just gone. Well, she was, technically. I'm like, listen, your spirit is floating out of the room above them. Just above them. You see all this taking place, and they're fighting Vecna, and you see them in slow motion. He sees all this happening. I'm like, you see Pate swinging up with his hammer one final time to swing down on Vecna, and he looks at me and he goes, I smile, and I shed a single tear knowing that my friends did it, and that I'll see them again one day. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. No, I dropped a tear too. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I can use this. Wait a minute. I had him, the tear that he said he dropped. And this is when I love improvising. He said he dropped his tear, it came off his face. And I said, Pate, as you swing your hammer up, you look up and you swear for a second from the ceiling. You don't know if it's a water droplet, a tear. You can't tell what it is. Something drops on your hammer. And as soon as it hits the hammer, it ignites an angelic power. Wings sprout from the side. An axe blade comes from the front. And you swing down with all your might. And it slices right through Vecna.
Dang, dude, that's so cool.
And then Nomo's spirit floated to the heavens to see Moradin. And they were just like,
oh,
holy fuck.
I don't even know the story, and that gives me chills.
That was probably one of the most chilling moments I had as a DM because I was like, holy fuck, I can use this and it's going to be great. And like, we were all just like in tears because like the way everybody role played it was gorgeous. And I'm like, fuck, why am I crying? I'm the DM. I shouldn't be doing this right now. Oh God, the game, just like you can't get that shit out of like other games. Like you can't, you know, there's been video games that have made me like emotional.
I remember
but like
one time I was listening to The Glass Cannon, and one of the players was just like, "Man, if you're not playing these games, I don't know what you're doing with your life because these are so cool."
Yeah, if you haven't played,
there's just these moments that's like you couldn't get that playing like any other game.
No,
you know, like and the fact that like there's no like pre-written response for things that your characters can do, like in video games, you know. It's like everything that happened is you. It's all you. You know, it's all your character.
Yeah.
So anything that happens because of that is also all you, and that's just amazing.
And like you said, if you're not playing a tabletop RPG, then what the hell are you doing? Like, get out and play one. Life. I don't care if it's D&D. I don't care if it's Monster of the Week. I don't care if it's Pathfinder. I don't care what Edge of Empire, Star. I don't care. Play something. Like you can't get this shit out of other games. You just get like D&D, like and tabletop RPGs. They're my favorite games ever. Like they come above any video game, like anything, because the experience you get out of this stuff is unlike any other game you're ever going to play. It beats board games, it beats video games, like, and the best part about it is like it's not the thing that versus a video game is like you're in the front of like your friends. Like it's an in-person, I mean, sometimes you can play online, but like majority of the games you play, it's like you guys are all interacting with each other. You're not over a microphone, you know, most of the time, unless you're like somebody's doing a Skype game. You're face to face with your friends. You're interacting in person. And that alone just adds a whole different feel. Like it's one thing to play online games like World of Warcraft, like I play with my friends, or like Rocket League and that kind of stuff. But when you do like these types of games in person with your friends, you can't get that shit with other games. You just can't.
Yeah, absolutely not. I would love. I'm really looking forward to someday, like actually like playing in the same room because we play over. We have to play over Skype because our players live in different states and different counties and stuff. So,
Okay.
but someday I would love to get to actually like play with everyone in the same room. Like
Yeah.
it'll be a nightmare to edit, but like, oh, it would be so much fun to actually like, because a lot of the times I have to like look at my notes and stuff to make sure that the story is going properly, so I don't get to see everyone's reactions all the time. So it'd be fun just to be able to like look up and see the horror that I'm causing.
Yep, absolutely.
Firsthand.
That's like I mean, we record all in the same room, and like it's the editing's actually not that bad, so I can't complain too bad about it. It's pretty relatively simple with the way I do it. But we did do a guest on our. I do a couple guests on my shows and stuff. But my buddy Christian, we call him Steak because his last name is Stakely. He played with us over Discord, and I've actually never met this kid in person. I've known him for like over a year. We played video games and stuff like almost every night. We talk every single day. He's like one of my best friends. He played it with us over Discord, and we recorded it. It sounded it sounded okay. He didn't have the best mic in the world, but whatever, it worked. It sounded good. He's literally coming up from North Carolina to Ohio in a couple weeks from my wedding, and he's running. He's gonna be in a couple episodes with us as a guest star, but in person. So we finally get to see his reactions in person, which we're all super excited for. It's gonna be like a cool experience having somebody actually come up to play with us. But he's also doing a one shot, and he's gonna DM a one shot for me for my bachelor party. So not only are we gonna have somebody like out of state coming up to play with us. He's also going to DM like a mini episode for us for like a special occasion. So it's gonna that kind of got my brain rolling when you said you want to play in person with people, but like that's something I'm super excited for, to have somebody that I played with online over the past like year or so finally be able to come up in person and meet and be like, all right, we just met, we're playing fucking D&D.
That's so much fun. Yeah, someday I would love to do a couple of cons and DM some games at cons, just to like get to play with like new people. That's one of the reasons I like the Dragon Knights One Shots Twitch show, because like I get to meet new people, and most of them I've listened to their show already, but like I get to like hang out with like new people and run them through my own specific.
Yeah, I'm excited to play that with you guys. Actually, it sounds a lot of fun.
Them.
Yeah,
I'm tagline to my show.
I'm looking forward to it a lot. It sounds like a lot of fun for us to do that. So we're getting close to the end of the episode here, but I did want to ask you a question real quick that I'm actually asking quite a few people. Is since you are a game master, dungeon master, whatever your terminology is for that, the most recent video I'm doing here on the YouTube channel is actually going to be the top 5 or 10, I haven't decided yet, top 5 or 10 hardest things about being a game master or a dungeon master. So what do you think, maybe not in an order, but a couple of the hardest things you find about being a DM or a GM, like a couple things you struggle with? Like, as fun as it is, I love being a dungeon master. I love everything about it. But there are some times where I'm like, man, this is kind of frustrating. And I think it's really, kind of interesting to see different people's insights about like what's hard, what do I struggle with, what can I get better at, and for people to learn. So what are your, personal struggles or hardest things you find with being a DM or a GM?
Sure. So you asked this question in the Discord earlier, and I jokingly said keeping my players alive.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Because of the way Monster of the Week is set, like it is kind of a struggle sometimes to like. It's one of those things where I have to keep in mind how much armor someone has, because 2 of my players have a lot of armor, so I can hit them with those bigger, more gruesome hits, and it won't do as much damage, but it'll sound really cool,
Yeah.
So and then I have to remember the other character. I really can't most of the time hit them with those big gruesome hits, or they'll just die just in like a hit or two.
Yeah, it's kind of like
that's
so kind of managing all your characters, like your players' stats and stuff at the same time as managing like your creatures and your enemies and stuff. Yeah, that can get kind of frustrating. I think the biggest thing with me is, and I kind of touched up on a little bit, I think we actually talked about it in the Discord coincidentally, was the balance. Like, balancing is sometimes a pain in the ass, because you want to, and we did talk about it earlier too, how if you don't balance it, if it's too easy, it's not fun. If it's too hard, they die and get pissed, and it's not fun. You want to find that sweet spot in the middle. And sometimes it's really easy, but other times it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. That's one of my personal struggles when it comes to DMing. But
I think balancing characters can be very difficult. I haven't had as much trouble with it in my in Thornvale in the podcast, But I do have some characters. I think we're talking about it in the Discord, or saying like audience characters that like to sort of sit on the side and not talk and not interact as much. But
Yeah.
I like to try to include everyone when I get the chance, especially with the Pathfinder group is such a huge group. Like it's like 5 people. It's a lot of people to keep track of, but I try to include people as much as possible. And sometimes the party needs to split up. The party needs to split up, and there's nothing I can fricking do about it.
Yep, it just happens.
And then I have to keep track of 2 different stories at the same time, and that's always fun.
Yeah.
They do that so often in Thornvale, and it just drives me crazy every time they're like, yeah, I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to go this way. It's like, oh, thank you.
Shit.
You're so helpful.
Yeah, I think...
But I've started to kind of punish them.
Oh, okay.
For being so far away from each other.
I have...
But thankfully, Thornvale is a very small island, so it's easy for them to get places where they need to be faster. But if they don't, things can happen.
My players have split the party intentionally, not too many times, a couple times, and some bad jujus went down, because the thing with splitting the party is, like, if you're playing in character and in game, like, you don't know what's going on with the other players. You just don't, and there's nothing you can do about it if you're role playing it how you should.
Yeah,
but
like
there was
somehow your friends are dying in the other room, and like you're in the other room, and you're never gonna know.
Yep.
Right?
There's been one time I did intentionally split them for a combat scenario, and I made sure it was balanced, because I did it on purpose, but like because it was done by me like on purpose, and instead of like all 3 of them or 2 of them, because they have an NPC that travels with them, named Wolfish. She was a robot fish dog, and that's another story for another day. It was split between.
I'm gonna listen to your show soon. Sounds like a blast.
Yeah, they have an NPC.
And they spoiled the end of the season for me.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just super excited about it. But I recommend you listen to it.
I'll probably forget by the time I get
It's super fun. Yeah, there's 40 episodes. It's going to take you some time to catch up. Super fun. I recommend you listen to it. I'm not trying to showboat my own DMing style, but I think we do a pretty good and fun job with the show. Split the party, and it was, instead of 4 players versus like the 3 or 4 slot they were fighting, it was 2 players versus 2, and then the other 2 versus 2, and split between rocks in the middle. And granted, like, what they were fighting wasn't super hard, but because they were split, they were just like, oh shit, we need to totally change how we fight, because we're so used to fighting as a team, and they had to change everything on the fly. And it was really cool to see how they interacted split, like knowing they were both in combat scenarios and split apart from each other. So I don't try to split the party like on intention too often, but when I do, I usually try to make it so it's like balanced in a sense, if you know what I mean.
I once intentionally split my Pathfinder group party. They came up to a cave, and they're like, I'm gonna go in the cave, and I'm like, okay. And there was a writing on the cave that said that it was called the Cave of Separation Anxiety. And basically, I had them roll, and if they got odds, they went in one side of the cave, and if they got evens, they went in the other side of the cave. And not only was it like, did it intentionally separate them, but it was also a maze. It was a ton of fun to get through, though.
The name, the Cave of Separation Anxiety, just gives me anxiety hearing the name, so that sounds really cool.
It was super fun, though. It was a blast to play through, but one of I think it was like 2 players on one side and 3 in the other. And the 3 came across this like dragon, and like, I'm gonna fight the dragon, and I'm just like, as the DM, I'm just like, hey, like, so you see a big, very scary, very dangerous looking dragon. You're like, I'm gonna fight the dragon. Big, very scary, very dangerous. Just like, as much as I can do, like, please don't fight the dragon.
Don't
fight the dragon.
Dangerous.
It's there to look cool, but it'll kill you.
Very scary. Yeah, I've had to drop some subtle hints sometimes. Like, hey, this thing looks very strong. Like, really, really strong. I'm like, I'm gonna kill it, and I'm like, it's super strong. I'm gonna have to send you when we're done with this. I'm gonna send you a video link to one of the D&D stories I did with a play group that I played in, where they were a bunch of new kids who have never played. Well, they played a couple times, but they were still in the mindset of like, we are invincible, we can kill everything, and I'm a veteran player, and I'm like, no, that's not how that works. And I had to save their asses in so many situations where I was just like, oh, you guys shouldn't fight. There's like, we're fine. And I'm like, no. Like, no. It's a good video. It's a good story. So, with that, I think we're going to wrap up here in a minute. Right. Is there anything else you would like to say? Actually, where can we find your podcast at?
Yeah, cool. So you can search Thornvale. That's like Thornvale. Pretty much everywhere. We're everywhere. We are, I believe, Thornvale Cast on Twitter because they won't let me put the word Thornvale Podcast in the name.
Yep, too long. Yep.
Yeah, so we're Thornvale Cast on Twitter. I think it's facebook.com/Thornvale and then Thornvale Podcast on Instagram. And then you can find me. I'm Keeper Susannah. That's Susannah. I spelled my name weird, I know.
Awesome.
So if you want to follow me directly, and then otherwise on Twitch, we are Dragon Knights One Shots. And like I said, the first one of those is going to be coming out real soon, past when this episode's going to be coming out. But we'll have another one. We are featuring. When is this episode going to come
out? Next week, actually. So
next week. Okay.
What's today? The 9th. So 7 days ish from now. So like the 15th, 14th, 13th, somewhere around there.
So I don't know the date for it yet, but sometime in October, we are going to be hosting the crit show on our on the Dragon Knights One Shots, and that's going to be a ton of fun.
Cool.
So so that's our next person up we've got. So
awesome. So everybody, if you're listening to this on YouTube, what you should be, because if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, you get these episodes a week early. Rather than if you listen on our regular podcast sources. If you're listening on one of our podcast sources because you listen to We Cantrip at D&D Podcast, cool, good for you. But if you want to hear the Cantrip Conversations episodes a week early, make sure you subscribe to the Cantrip Cast on YouTube because we got a lot of really cool stuff. I do a lot of homebrew videos, class builds, D&D stories, D&D tips, tricks, all that kind of stuff. So make sure you subscribe to us. You can hear this stuff a week early, for all the cool content. And if you're listening on YouTube, good for you. Make sure you look below in the description because I'm going to have all the information that she just said available for you guys so you can find their show, Twitch, Twitter, everything that you guys want to listen to if you want to listen to Thornvale, because I know that I am for sure.
Thanks.
So, is there anything else you would like to say before we sign off?
Yeah, I can't think of anything other than I've just had a ton of fun, and I look forward to hosting you guys in January.
Yeah, I am super excited for it. And if there's any other time you want to come back and do this again with me, I am, the door is wide open for you.
All right.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Cantrip Conversations. I will catch you guys later on the next episode. Make sure you listen to Thornvale and We Cantrip, a D&D podcast. Bye.
All right. Bye.